It's me, Russ, and today 5 reasons your vehicle's overheating. Here we are in Vicky, the 2000 Dodge Grand Caravan. I don't know, it's big. Grand Voyager, we don't know. Anyway, check it out. That is the temp. Been driving around. It's one of the hottest days this year, 2020, May 1st. It's May Day as I'm recording this. So over here we have a 2000 Dodge Caravan. Over here we have a 2005 Dodge Caravan. This van here though, the 05. Yeah, it's got a little more miles on it. Let's get started. Number one. The number one reason for an overheat is water. Engines that are cooled by fluid, once the fluid doesn't stay in the cooling system, you have a problem. Leaks, number one. Obviously, if you're overheating, you need more fluid. I did a video on mixing fluid, buying not pre-diluted fluid because I think it's a waste of money. You know, maybe buy a couple of these so you get the jugs, save the jugs. And I have a video on how to mix it real easy, and you'll save yourself a few bucks by buying concentrate instead of pre-diluted. Whoa. Another thing about a leak is you can smell it, right? Like you'll smell antifreeze or coolant while you're driving down the road. You start to smell, you see a little steam coming out of your radiator. That's a good chance you either have a leak or something else is causing your cooling system to clog up or back up. So it's sending all of your fluid out the overflow. All right, so in here, now this vehicle here has plenty of water in it. You can see it all the way up to the top there. This one? Ooh. See that? That's a stop leak. Somebody used stop leak in Vicky here. And she looks like she could use some coolant in this side here. Anyhow. You got no coolant in your radiator. That's a problem. But why is that? Odds are you have a leak. And the best way to tell if you have a leak is to look for dried, like hard water areas where you're seeing it drain down the side of the radiator. It's kind of hard to see on these vehicles. A lot of times these hoses, this is about a brand new hose that's on here now, but you'll see them bubble up right in this area. They'll get all, let's see, how is this fan? This one's older. So here's an example. See how that's kind of bubbled out? It's swollen on the end there. That means this hose is getting older. All right, it's needing to be replaced soon, because what'll happen is you'll get a little leak, like a pinhole leak. These will rip sometimes, and that will cause an overheat, because basically after a while it might not look like it. It's just a little drip, it's not that big a deal, Russ. It's just a little drip, just a little spray. After a while, half hour, an hour, you're losing a lot of fluid because it's under pressure. So it's spraying out. As minuscule as the leak looks, you got to keep putting water in your radiator to keep it from overheating. Overheating, by the way, is extremely bad for your engine, especially under really hot conditions. Under any condition, it's not good. You can wear out an engine really quickly by driving it while it's overheating. You can warp the block. A lot of these aluminum engine blocks now blow head gaskets. It's not a good idea to drive when you're overheating. It's another good place to look for leaks. You'll kind of see, again, the kind of hard water look that's dripping down the side. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just gotta let your vehicle warm up, get really hot, and look for drip drops on the ground. Sometimes, like we had with this vehicle, it's your heater core. So you can see where the I didn't change the heater core. Changing the heater core in this vehicle is a big job. It's quicker, as according to the shop manual, to do a head gasket on this vehicle than it is to tear out the dashboard in order to change that heater core. But yeah, that heater core went bad, and so I don't drive this vehicle very often anymore. I use it for hauling stuff mainly. See that right there? I just basically created a loop, which works fine. But I don't have heat in this vehicle. 435,000 miles, not changing the heater core. It made it 400,000 miles with the original heater core, and that's it. So retired the vehicle. Number 2, the second reason for an overheat is a clog. And similarly, it can look like you don't have any fluid, because what's happening is when your cooling system is clogged, all of your fluid after a while will just start coming out of your overflow. So your overflow's up here is designed to let pressure, excess, waste out of the radiator. And if it's clogged, yeah, you're gonna overheat after a while. And usually that is caused by not necessarily the thermostat. Now, this may be controversial. Some mechanics may tell you to change the thermostat every time. Usually the reason they tell you that is because they get money. They get money for changing your thermostat. The truth is, the thermostat's a very simple little machine, and not a lot goes wrong with them, all right? They heat up at a certain degree. You can even test this. Like, you can take one of those temperature guns, put your thermostat in a pot on your stove, heat the water up to 200 degrees, see if it opens. If it opens, there's nothing wrong with your thermostat. If it doesn't open, then you need to change it. It's extra work to do that, but it's save you a few bucks. And again, if you're doing this kind of work yourself, some mechanic isn't charging you an extra $40, $50 to change your thermostat. Odds are you don't need a thermostat. That's what I found in my experience over time. One of the ways a thermostat can get clogged or shut is using, like in the 2000 here, using stop leak. You use enough stop leak over time, and after a while it can adhere to your thermostat, causing it to kind of weld itself together. That's why it's best not to use that stuff. It can get you out of a jam for a week or two, but yeah, if you're continually pouring bottle after bottle of stop leak into your cooling system, you're gonna have problems over time. I know this from experience. I did it with the van here. I used that stuff to fix the heater core, and maybe that lasted for an extra 5,000 miles or so, but I had to replace the thermostat because that's what happened. I had so much of that stuff in my cooling system, it just welded my thermostat together, basically. So, clog. And it's not the thermostat you need to worry about as much as it's the gunk that gets in your radiator, all right? You're gonna have to take it down and get a radiator flush. Can you do it yourself? Yeah, you could probably do it yourself, but there's a lot of waste. I would recommend, if you're going to do it in like a dirt road or an alley or something like that, where the runoff isn't getting into, because I'm a pet lover, right? I'm a pet owner. Antifreeze kills cats, all right? And most of the time, cats know what's poison, what isn't, but antifreeze tastes really sweet to them. They will drink it and they'll die. Happened to my neighbor's cat. It's horrible. So try not to just dump antifreeze, around where pets can drink it for your cats or whatever. It's not good for your grass or your lawn. I don't know, I've never had it kill my grass, but it's best to let it soak into either the ground. Don't let it go in the wastewater. Like, that's pollution. That's not good for fish downstream. It's best to take it to like a reputable place. I'm not sure I would do Jiffy Lube or one of those places. I'd probably avoid those places myself. But take it to a reputable guy who does oil changes and knows his way around a radiator, because they have, you know, waste. They're licensed by the whatever municipality or wherever you live, and they can get rid of that stuff pretty easy. But that's a big part of it. Your radiator can get clogged with just the silt and junk, like, you know, stop leak over time. But most of the time, it's just the dirt and gunk and the coolant itself breaking down and causing gunk to grow in your cooling system. And you gotta flush that out, I'd say every 100,000 miles at least, you know, 50,000 miles, I don't know. It's a good idea depending on where you live. If I lived in a hot climate, we're here in the Seattle area, if I lived in Arizona or Texas or somewhere like that, I would more than likely be doing a lot more coolant flushes than we do here. But that's number 2, clogs. The third way I would diagnose an overheat is these electric fans. This is the number 3 down the line of reasons you're overheating. I usually check this one as well if there's any, you know, clog or it's backing up. It's pretty easy. One of the things you can do to diagnose this is you get your engine nice and hot and you test by using a bendy straw. This is the bendy straw trick. You just get a bendy straw. It's hard to see sometimes. You can kind of see from here. It's sunny here, so we got some light. But if these fans aren't spinning when your engine is warm and you start to see your gauge climbing above the halfway point, right? Odds are. That leads us to number 4, electrical fuse. Sensor. It could be one of 2 things: your temperature sensor, which I did a video on that for the Caravan here, the 05, or it's a fuse or a relay. And odds are, if your sensor's gone out, your temperature sensor, it's gonna throw a code. So you'll see a code pop up. You see your engine light come on. If your engine light's on, do a scan and see if you don't have a temperature sensor that's out. If your engine light is not on, that could mean that it's not the temperature sensor. But always, 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 if you have an engine light, take it down, get it scanned, and see what kind of codes pop up. It's a good idea to check your fuses if your fan isn't running properly. And your fuse box is right here. Push this, and there you go. So identify which fuses go where. Right in this area. Oh, it's upside down. Fan relay, radiator fan. It's a fuse, basically. It looks like that, these 40 amp fuses. And you can see on the top when they're broken. See that? They're clear for a reason. I can get my camera to focus. Yeah, they got that little cylindrical circle, and it'll be broken to tell you when the fuse is bad. And yeah, that was the problem. But that was only once. We get rodents. And yes, rodents can make your car overheat. That's what happened to me. They actually chewed the wires to my radiator fan, and I put butt connectors on here, and then I taped it up with electrical tape. But yeah, man, one of the rats had chewed through one of these wires, and then I'm like, hey, I just replaced this fan. What the heck's going on? It wasn't the fan, it was the wire had been chewed by a freaking rodent. Tip for you, one of the things you can do if your temperature sensor goes out, or your thermostat, the unlikely event that it's clogged, you could blast your heater, all right? But if your engine's overheating, a really quick way to get out of that, if it's something electrical based or a thermostat, is to turn your heater on full blast. Boom. And that can help get you home if you're you're climbing the ladder here, as long as you're not totally up to H, at which point you should pull over and not drive your vehicle anymore, because you could do irreparable engine damage. But if you see it getting hot and you smell it getting hot, that's one of the things you can do. Is if you feel heat coming out, that's another diagnosis problem too. If you feel heat coming out, odds are you still have some coolant in your coolant system, because usually what happens if your heater isn't working and you're getting cold in your car in the morning, or it takes a really long time for the vehicle to warm up to where when you turn on your heater you're getting heat, odds are you don't have enough fluid in your cooling system. Another tip for you, this is a good little investment. Pop one of these on. Actually, I took it off here because we put it on the other van, but the other van has a pretty good cap anyway. This has a pressure lever on it, so as to not get yourself hot, too sprayed with fluid. If your vehicle's getting warm, you pull up on this lever, a little bit of steam will come out, and you know not to remove this cap. That lets pressure out of your radiator. It's kind of a cool little thing to have. This was like, I don't know, 10, 15 bucks. O'Reilly. That was another issue I had with 05 here, was the temperature sensor had failed, and instead of the vehicle, it said it was overheating, right? So the temperature on the gauge would go to hot, and my wife is like, the van's overheating, and I come out, I check everything, it's got plenty of fluid in it, I warm it up, nothing's happening. So I'm like, but basically what it was the temperature sensor. So if your vehicle is not getting hot and you can't smell antifreeze, you don't see any drips or leaks, and yet your gauge is still going up and you're hearing ding, 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 overheating, freaking you out, it could be your temperature sensor. That has happened with this vehicle before. I've put 2 temperature sensors in this vehicle in 400,000 miles. When I bought this vehicle, I had 15,000 miles on it, and I drove it to 435. So I've done pretty much everything in this vehicle, keeping it running. So yeah, there's been 2 temperature sensors since I've owned this vehicle. The second one was for that reason. It wasn't overheating, but the temperature sensor was messed up. So stop leak inside the radiator cap right there. It's trying to, it feels like, yeah, it's a little, that's what it does, is it basically kind of adheres itself, welds itself to the inside of the vehicle. It's not gonna hurt anything on your radiator cap, of course, because it's rubber right there, but yeah. Now, what if you've done all these things and you still have a problem? You've flushed your system, you've changed the temperature sensor, you've changed the thermostat. What is going on, Russ? Why am I still overheating? This is something I've done too. Radiators get clogged. Even though you flush them, there's not a lot of pressure to some of those flushes. It's not gonna get a lot of the gunk out of the bottom of the radiator. And that's something I had to do with this vehicle, was buy a whole new radiator because it was clogged, all right? Not necessarily, this was before the whole heater core problem, by the way. It had just gotten clogged, and you just need to replace the radiator. That's the last thing I would do, but these radiators are plastic. If you have a leak in your radiator, you can try and use stop leak. It's not gonna work very long. It's better to just get a radiator. You can buy them online pretty cheap. I bought this one online. It's like 80 bucks for this vehicle, and there's a lot of videos on how to do that. It's not that hard. A novice, I believe, could change a radiator in one of these vehicles. It's not that difficult. Like if there's still pressure in your radiator, don't be opening it and pouring water in it yet. You're gonna have to have some patience. It's gonna take a while for your engine to cool down to where you can put fluid in it in order to get you home if you don't have too bad of a leak, all right? Now, if you have a bad leak, you may just need to change a hose. There's been times in my life where I would have a leak, you know, like right here on the hose, and I would just cut it off with a razor knife, move it up, put the hose clamp back on, and I was good to go. But please make sure you're not pouring cold water in a hot, really hot engine. It's not, that'll warp your engine block. That'll do all sorts of damage. Don't do that. So to review, you have an overheating issue. What do you do first? First of all, you subscribe to this here channel, all right? Hit the subscribe button. If this video helps you in your life, please give me a like. I would appreciate that. It helps us YouTubers survive in the mean streets out here. So the first thing you do if you have an overheat is turn on your heater full blast. That might help, unless you're all the way at hot. Then you pull over and wait for your vehicle to cool down. Maybe fill it up with fluid and start again after the vehicle's all the way cooled down. You don't want to pour cold water in a very, very hot vehicle. You want to wait till it stops steaming. You want to maybe have one of these. So you filled it up with fluid and you got it home. You let it sit and you're not smelling any antifreeze. Yet it's overheating. The temperature's climbing. If it doesn't smell hot, odds are temperature sensor, right? If it does smell hot and, you know, overflow is causing a lot of fluid to come out into your overflow tank here, and you can smell that, that'll start to smell. I mean, these aren't, you know, they drip on the side, they'll drip onto the ground. You'll see the fluid dripping onto the ground. That means you either have a clog or one of your fans isn't working. So the next thing I would do is check your fans, make sure both of them are blowing, put the air conditioner on, make sure both of them are working, are functional, both of them, all right? One of them is working and one isn't, you're still gonna overheat. They both have to be working. Number 3, change your thermostat, especially if you've used any stop leak in the past. If you have a hose, you need to replace the hose, replace the hose. If you have a leaky radiator, you need to replace the radiator, all right? Don't use too much of that stop leak stuff. Again, it'll clog up your radiator, clog up your heater core. It can cause problems if you use too much of that stuff, all right? So again, if your fan is out, before you go and replace the fan, I have videos on that on my channel. I'll put them in the description. Make sure you check your fuses, and if that fuse in there is good, then odds are you got a burnt fan or an electrical issue, and that may be something to check too. Make sure your wires, you know, aren't frayed or chewed or something got in there and messed with your wiring, because that can happen too. And you can check that here. You know, you have 2 pigtails down here. They slide out. You can slide this off. Check your wires from underneath, just to make sure. Odds are that's pretty rare for that to happen, something like that to happen, but it's something to check. As a betting man, if your fan's gone out, odds are your fan just went out. They're not built very good. Chrysler didn't do a good job on the electric fans in these vehicles, so it's a notorious problem, pretty common. Temperature sensor, it's under there. In the 2000 over here, it's similar. I have a video on that here on the channel, link in the description. And when all else fails, change your radiator, all right? Change your radiator anyway. If you got 200,000 miles on one of these, it might be a good idea to just change your radiator, all right? If you're having overheating issues, if you're constantly smelling, you know, heat, like it's overflowing, and you change your radiator. It might be time. These radiators aren't designed to last over 200,000 miles. I think the first time I changed it out, Yeah, it was about right around 180, 200,000 miles. Yeah. Also, make sure you're using the right coolant for your vehicle. Mopars have different coolant than Chevys have. Dex Cool or General Motors vehicles, you know, it's Dex Cool. It's for the Mopars, it's something else. Fords, you can use standard. I use just the green stuff in this vehicle for a long time because, again, after 250,000 miles, it was on borrowed time. You know, I mean, I'd still change the oil and stuff, but I'm not going to invest a whole lot of money in this vehicle. So, yeah, it's been still going, still running, 435,000 miles. Change your radiator, and that's it, man. It's one of those problems every single time. I guarantee it. Thanks again for watching. Again, please subscribe to the channel. Give us a like. I'd be curious as to if this video helped and which one it was. Was it number 1? Was it number 4? Was it number 5? Comment below. I'd be curious to know. Thanks for watching, and bye. Don't forget to subscribe, and why not watch another video? Stick around.